It's time to take my Element Enduro ECTO and turn it into a LCG beast. Stay tuned. Hey folks, and welcome back. So it's build day. We are going to take the Caiman LCG chassis from GCRC that I reviewed in my last video, and we're going to put it basically into my Element ECTO. There's a few bits and pieces that I've had to buy separately. Just to make that work, because I'm going to have to lose the trailing arm suspension off the ECTO. That won't work with the Caiman chassis. So I've bought some rear links. I've bought some nice long ones, which are the Enduro. Let's see if that focuses. So 127 lower links. They're the high clearance ones, and 121 upper links, they're straight ones. I've got some link ends already from the various collection of elements that I've bought. And I've also got to go with a servo on axle setup, and I've bought this rather nice carbon fibre one from RRC Customs. Again, pretty good value. Put some links in the description. It's about 23 quid, I think. The links were probably about £15 altogether. So really not a huge amount extra that I've had to buy. And I'm hoping that's going to be everything. But we will see as we get stuck in. So let's do exactly that. Let's switch to an overhead view. Basically, it's a case of strip this off. Should be relatively straightforward. It should be just a case of basically undoing a few bits and pieces where the chassis ties into some of the main components, so suspension, obviously the skid, although I'm just going to take the gearbox transmission straight off. We'll kind of undo the stickies and remove the servo, and that should be pretty much it really. We can then get rid of the old chassis in one piece, and then we can worry about links and what have you separately. Most of this is going to be a 2mm. And there we go. That's what's left of the ECTO, as was. So I've got plenty of spares now for my gatekeeper, which is awesome. Or my GCRC, as I'm going to call it now, because it's going to be both. As you'd imagine, that bit was super simple. It was literally undoing about 20 bolts, 20 screws. Right, so let's have a good look at this skid. So we looked at this before. But I think, essentially, this is a quality piece of kit. The print quality is really good. It feels nice and solid. I like the flat panel on there, and basically from what I can see, the idea is to feed the screws down through into these longer holes, and they will make the connections effectively for the rod ends, the suspension rods, suspension links. So I am going to sort of have a bit of a look and see if I can estimate what length screws I need to do that with. So by my reckoning, that's going to be quite a long screw. That looks about right. First go. I'll get the calipers and I'll measure these as we go along so that we can see which ones go where. So this will be the rear links. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a 30mm screw. So rear lower links, 30mm, I think. Let's very carefully feed that through. The tolerances on this 3D printer is really good because that's really not going to take much effort to feed that through. But it's going to be enough to hold it tight, which is really good. It's pushing out some, what looks like some, yeah, bit of support material coming out there. That's fine. Again, the tolerances are a little bit tighter on the other end to hold that in place. That's really good, really good. Perfect. So that's going to be just the job, I think. We'll take that out, just back it off a bit. We'll leave it like that. We'll grab another one. Having to check them because my screw selections have all got a bit mixed up over time. Plus, you know, measure twice, cut once, or whatever the saying is. So I'm just starting these off by hand actually, just to make sure they're in straight. Not sending it through sideways or anything silly like that. Now this next one, I think I'm going to try and use the same size again, but just go all the way through from one side. Because there is an option to screw one in from both sides, but I'm not sure why you would. I think given how far that looks to be, you won't be able to see that on there, but that kind of goes down quite a long way. Okay, so that's gone a decent way through. Hard to say exactly. Let's get a Sharpie and mark that so we can see. Now, I've not tightened it right down, I just tightened it down until it started to feel like it was biting. Might get another one thread out of that, something like that. So that is probably only a couple of mil in there. Yeah, maybe 2.5 mil. Is that going to be enough? Not sure. I'll put it in for now, and then maybe I'll order some longer ones. So, because these screws are a little bit hidden once the rails are on, I am going to have to get the links onto this now, then mount it, then we can build the rest of it up. So the logo just there is the front of the skid. That's going to be that side. And that is going to be my that side. Technical terminology there. There we go. So front and rear, lower links. There's nothing else specifically that needs to go into the skid now, apart from obviously the transmission. So that can go onto the chassis now, and we can put the sliders in because the sliders cover up and the chassis covers up these screws. Now, fairly clever approach to this. So on the sliders, you'll see there's a cutout at the back to cover a screw head, and that's because they've done it so that you haven't got to hold all three bits together with the slider and the skid and the rails and everything all together at once. You can just put these two in, get that lined up in the right place, and just put one screw in the back side, at the back of each. So just for those rear ones, I'm going to use some slightly smaller headed, some sort of button head screws rather than these big socket head ones. And what that also does, or has the benefit of doing, is kind of tucking the rails right up tight to the skid, so that you're not trying to mess about further down the line when you're trying to put the skids on. And it also just helps, so many good reasons for that, just helps locate the skids as well. Just a great little idea, simple but really good. There we go, we've got a nice solid connection there, nice smooth skid, really good, really like that. Okay, next I'm just going to pop the transmission and some electronics on there. I think the thing we've got to remember here now is that we are probably going to need to use some different screws to mount the transmission as well. Okay, so by the magic of television, you'll see that we've suddenly jumped forward quite a way. So last night had a bit of a problem with some of the filming equipment, the camera packed up halfway through, apologies for that, but I pressed on like the true professional, and also because I hadn't noticed. But hopefully we got most of what we were doing yesterday evening. Today I've had a bit of spare time because it's an extra bank holiday Monday, so I've had a little bit of spare time today to just kind of move things on a little bit further. So this is where we're up to. Actually, we've come on quite a long way. I've basically dropped in the shocks and the links and the axle, so that's all connected up now, as you can see. I didn't film all of this today, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I spent a lot of time messing about with different links trying to figure out which ones were the right ones. The two that I bought for the rear, or the two sets that I bought for the rear, I have used. Let's flip this over actually. The ones that I bought, the factory team kind of long ones, which are the actually the Night Runner sized rear links. I need some new sticky on my ESC. If you saw the video I did where I sort of did a bit of a review of this frame, this chassis, I did mention in there that I thought I was going to have some fun with the link lengths because of the distance between where the front link mounts, where the top link mounts and where the bottom links mount. That's much further apart than it is on the standard element builds. They would be much closer together. So the pairing, effectively, that I got for the links was not right, basically. Now, I had no way of knowing that, so I'm not sorry that I bought them. I can use the others as spares, that's fine. Fortunately though, because I've messed about with links on various different trucks, including the builder's kit that I used to build the G-Speed with, and because, as it turns out, because this is going steering on axle, and because G-Speed went steering on axle, I had a couple of spare panhard links, and it's actually the panhard link length that I've used as my front top links, and then the rear, the bottom, it's all getting very confusing. The front bottom links or lower links are actually, I think, the builder's kit rear lower links. Anyway, they are the 108mm. I'm not sure what they are. I'll find out. They are, like I say, the 127mm, and again, I can't remember quite what these were. But what I'll do is I'll put some stuff here or here, one side, that side. I'll do it on that side. So I'll put a list of that here, and you'll be able to see the different links that I've used to get this setup working. And actually, it's worked out pretty nicely. Really pleased with it. The axles are the front axle is just clocked back a little bit, which is making for quite a steep angle on the drive shaft, but I don't think it's too steep. I don't think there'll be a problem with that. But with that slightly clocked back axle, that will mean that I'll get some pretty good steering out of that, hopefully. And with the steering on axle as well, I'm going to have no restrictions at all in terms of my steering lengths. The rear does lay down the shocks, I think, just a little bit too much for what I like. So this is not going to come across with this particular camera angle. I will try and get a kind of separate shot of it for you. But essentially the rear is kind of just sitting down a little bit too far. Now I've also today rebuilt the Desert Lizards. I think I bought these to go on, I can't remember why I bought these to go on the ECTO actually. I think it's because I'd finished up somewhere down the line with all of the different element trucks. I finished up with one set that leaked really badly, and one of the plastic caps was broken. So I bought those Desert Lizards, put them on the ECTO, never really set them up very well. They were always a bit stiff at the end of the travel, there was some air in them, so they were getting airlocked. So I've rebuilt those, but I've also swapped the springs round. So the way I've set them up is to have the medium spring effectively under the piston, or on the shaft, and then the small small length spring above the piston. So you've got the smalls and the medium length, and I've used the softest springs on both. Now that's resulted in really nice soft compliant suspension, which is exactly what I want, but the longer wheelbase at the rear has meant they're kind of really laid down, and I've only got effectively one shock option to use there, otherwise that's going to tuck right down. So as it stands at the minute, the skid is not quite at the angle it should be, and the sliders are slightly away from horizontal. So I think what I'm going to do, these are 90mm Desert Lizards, I think I'm going to pick up a pair of 100mm Desert Lizards. Now the video I used just to remind myself how to set these up nicely by a chap called Ian Henderson, who's one of the comp guys in the UK. I think he uses the Caiman chassis, I'm not 100% sure, but he certainly says he often uses 100mm Desert Lizards in the rear. So I'm going to get a set of those, I think, and hopefully that should just give me just that bit more travel in the front, in the rear, that I'll be able to lift that rear end a bit more, and everything should be horizontal. In terms of shock oils, I've used 300 CST in the front, 400 CST in the back, so I just do want that rear to be a little bit slower and the front to be a little bit quicker. 300 is probably a little bit too thick. It might want to be 250 or 200, but I haven't got either of those, so I used the 300 that I'd got, and we'll see how we get on with that. But other than that, everything else worked okay. So the drive shafts worked fine. They're not too short or anything like that, so they're not going to fall apart halfway through. They fit all very nicely, and all the rest of the chassis and everything has gone together really well. So very pleased with where we've got to. Next job is going to be putting the steering on axle mount on and getting the servo on. I need to make myself a steering link for that, although I suppose I could order one if I can find one that's in stock, but last time I tried, everywhere was out of stock. So you can use the Sandero SE, that's an SOA setup, so you can use that steering link, and it all works beautifully. But everywhere was out of stock last time I tried, so I ended up just getting some M4 threaded rod and using that as a sort of makeshift. I'll have to cut that down to the length. These are 100mm. But the nice thing about these, I got 5 of these for about £4 or £5. So the price of one steering link, I got 4 or 5 of these. So I've got an opportunity to try some other stuff out with those if I want to. But that's exactly what I've done on the G-Speed build, and it works beautifully, no problem with it so far, so I'm going to do the same again here. That'll all be in the next video. I'll get on with that probably later on in the week, one evening, and see how we get on. But for the time being, hopefully this has been an enjoyable or entertaining video. If so, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already, hit the notification bell, all of those good things that really help out the channel. So that's going to be it for tonight. See you on the next one.